We are in Luke, the 20th chapter this morning. Luke, the 20th chapter. We'd got down to about verse 27, I believe, is where we'll start at today. If you stop and think about over the last few weeks of some of the lesson that we went through, the Pharisees, scribes, and the elders have been trying to test Jesus, trying to catch him in slipping up, we might say. And today, in verse 27, it'll be the Sadducees' turn. Now there came to him some Sadducees who say there is no resurrection. Now let me stop right there. How did the Pharisees feel about the Sadducees? Do you have any knowledge of that? Do what? They didn't like them. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Sadducees said there was no resurrection. That's what they believed. That was different than what the Pharisees believed. Okay? What did the Sadducees believe in? There was no resurrection. You ever stopped and thought about that? You heard the old analogy, if you're like Rover, you're dead all over. That's how they felt when you died. That was it. Okay? There was no resurrection. And they questioned him, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies having a wife, and he is childless, his brother should marry the wife and raise up children to the brother. Now there were 7 brothers, and the first took a wife and died childless, and the second and the third married her. In the same way, all 7 died, leaving no children. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, which one's wife will she be? For all 7 had married her." What kind of story is this? Have you ever stopped and thought about that? You have to remember, the Sadducees believe there is no resurrection. And they come up with a story like this.
That's a gotcha question.
Oh, yeah. They're thinking, if he answers it like this, he's going to disagree with Moses. If he answers it like this, he's going to... Do you see what they're trying to do? It's one of those questions that they think, well, any way he goes, we're going to get him. Okay? Any way he goes, we're going to get him. More than likely, this was a fictitious story, is what I've read. Okay? They're really probably not, this didn't happen. But they thought this up, thinking they might be able to get him. Now look at Jesus' response there in verse 34. And Jesus said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy to obtain to that age the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. For they can't even die anymore, because they are like angels and the sons of God, being sons of the resurrection, but that the dead are raised. Even Moses showed in the passage about the burning bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, but he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him." Some of the scribes answered and said, "Teacher, you have spoken well." For they did not have the courage to question him any longer about anything. Okay. How did Jesus respond to that question? Okay. About the 7 brothers and the wife. How did he respond to that? About
Simply no marriage in heaven.
Okay. Okay. You worry about things like that. You got to look at the spiritual end of it. So many times we today, and this is kind of how I think about it, we get so caught up in our physical problems or even our physical lives. When it comes to the Lord, what is it all? We have to remember, this is all spiritual. Don't worry about these things here. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. So here the scribes say, "Teacher, you've spoken well." They backed him up, and then they didn't say no more. They didn't say no more because they could not have the courage to ask him another question. Verse 41. Then he said to them, "How is it that they say the Christ is David's son? For David himself said in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.' Therefore David calls him Lord. How is he his son?" And while all the people were listening, he said to the disciples, "Beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love respectful greetings in the marketplaces, and the chief seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets, who devour widows' houses. For the appearance sake offer long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation." You know, you stop and think about this. How did Jesus describe the scribes and the Pharisees? How did he describe these people? You know, we have a term for that today. All show. These people, everything they did was to be seen. Look at me. Look what I'm doing. Exactly. Exactly. Because you look at them. They walk around in long robes. Their appearance, they want to be seen from a distance. Okay? And love respectful greetings in the marketplaces. They want people to respect their position. To respect their position. And you have to remember, after you read these characteristics, they want the chief seats. They want the best seats in the house, we might say. Well, if you know what he says here, it says, for appearance sake, offer long prayers. Yeah. If you've got something to say and it takes a while, that's a whole different deal. But if you're doing it to be seen, well, just look how religious they are because look how long he prayed. Okay? So you look at all these characteristics. How is that going to mess them up? Why are they so vindictive toward Jesus? Because the way Jesus is teaching, what he's bringing into the table, it's going to just destroy everything here. It's going to change everything they've ever done. Okay?
You know, he says this there at the end. He says this right in their presence.
In their presence. They were listening, but he was talking to his disciples, but everybody was listening.
Put them in their place.
Exactly. Exactly. He knew the hearts of these people. He knew they was trying to trick him. Now this next part. Yes.
Before you go into chapter 21,
Uh-huh.
would you read the last phrase of verse 47 again?
Yeah. Mine says, these will receive greater condemnation. Is that what you was referring to?
Yeah.
I was going to ask that. That's a good question.
Mine says, punish most severely.
Punish most severely?
Let me preference it by, the Pharisees' question that they posed to Jesus about marrying the second son, third son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were doing it to try to trap him.
Right.
But I don't mind the question,
Yeah.
because I think most of us spend a little time pondering, not worrying, but pondering in heaven, will Sally recognize me, or will she be freed from that burden? Which way is it gonna be?
Yeah, I understand. I understand. It does make us wonder.
And I'm
You
the
know.
same way at the end of this verse. I wonder where it says these individuals will be punished most severely.
Yeah.
You know, we teach and have the understanding that Jesus is gonna divide right and left, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, you good and faithful servant.
Right.
I never knew you. But is he saying some are gonna receive a harsher punishment? Or do we want to touch that?
Well, I don't know, to the extent of the harsher punishment, but we do know one thing. They did know the truth. They have been exposed to the truth, and they didn't accept it. They could have said, well, we didn't have to be here because of, I'd heard what we needed to do to be right. Walks away from it. What? Yeah. It'll be a lot harder on them. Yeah. Knew, man, I didn't have to be in this. Yeah. 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 I didn't have to be here. Well, we have to remember in heaven, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around this. All I know is I want to go there. You know what I mean? We know that we're going to be changed. How that always existing, I don't know for sure. Will we know our wives? Will we know our children? I don't know. But we all know that we all want to go there. Yeah. That's it. No tears. No tears. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Yeah. That's right. That's right. So,
Bill doesn't tell us somewhere in here, and I don't know where it's at, and I may be wrong, but it tells us even to consider before we take even some sort of a position within the church, that we will be judged.
the elders, deacons, yeah.
Or deacons.
Yeah, and our teacher, just a teacher. Yes.
A preacher, probably,
Yes,
whatever.
yeah. But if you decide, I'm going to teach those kids back there class, get ready.
You have to examine yourself.
You better be prepared, because you've got to answer for that. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, in a little bit lesser sense than this.
But that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that helped you any or not, Leland, but I think there are places in the scriptures that we will receive a greater judgment. But these folks right here, knowing the things, and they proclaim to be religious. That's the whole thing. They proclaim to be religious, but it was all, their reward was here on earth and not because, they did it for show.
If you're in their position, I mean,
Verse you talked about, I've got a whole Bible in here, it says, and these people will be punished men so much more.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just gonna say that, we're not supposed to try to do what God wants us to because of the fear of hell. But when you consider this, that if you're in a position where you may receive greater consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, what could be worse than going to hell? From what he says right here, there is something,
There could be. Could be.
something harsher.
And but we shouldn't be also knowing that we're greater scrutiny.
Sure,
But is that going to stop us from serving the Lord?
no, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't stop us.
As long as we stay in contact, as long as we're doing our very best to stay in contact with the Lord,
That's it.
then it's all.
So if you have a talent to teach,
Yeah, don't not teach because you're afraid of what you might.
Man, I'm gonna sit in here and keep my,
Yeah,
you know, I'm not gonna do anything,
but
because
that's
I'm
where
scared. You know, I
part of
don't
the
know
grace
what he's
of
saying.
God there. You know,
Yeah.
if you've got that talent and
That's
you're
right.
using it and you're doing the very best you can, His grace is.
So you have to answer for that if you don't use.
If you deliberately
Yeah.
start teaching things that are not true, then you better watch out.
That's right.
But, you know, we don't want people to be afraid to teach because they might accidentally do or say something. The grace of God's covering you in that
That's exactly right.
situation.
That's exactly right. Chapter 21 now. And he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins. Okay, can you get a mental picture here of what's taking place? Okay? You have the rich, you know, I don't know exactly how they went about it, but they were making another one of these scenes when they were putting their money in the treasury. Look what I'm doing. Look how much I put in. We've all been around it. I mean, we've all seen people that are that way. And they were putting whatever out of their abundance. Okay? But then you on the flip side, you see a poor widow, and she put in 2 small copper coins. I don't have the breakdown of how much it was, but it's very little. But look at the contrast of these two. Because look at what Jesus said. And he said, truly I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all of them. For they all out of their surplus put into the offering. But she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on. That's hard for us to think about, isn't it? This poor widow, she put in 2 coins. That's all she had to live on. But she gave it to the Lord. These other folks put in their money out of their surplus. It really didn't mean nothing. But you stop and think about, what does it entail when the poor widow put in all that she had? What does that tell you about her?
She was really sacrificing.
She sacrificed, but what did she put her faith in?
God.
God.
She put everything she had into that collection because she had faith in the Lord. Do you see the contrast? These other people just put in, just be seen. Okay, see the contrast? Because she put in more out of her poverty than they did out of their surplus. It's hard for us to imagine someone doing that. But I've known people that will give back to the Lord and do without. You see what I'm saying? They put in, that's how they feel. To give back to the Lord instead of maybe taking care of themselves. That's what I think about when I read that, about that widow. She gave all that she had to live on. Now in verse 5. And while some were talking about the temple, that it was adorned with beautiful stones and votive gifts, he said, as for these things which you are looking at, the days will come in which there will not be one stone upon another, which will not be torn down. You know, I can see that. This was a very spectacular place, the temple was. And it was really something to see, just according to what I've seen and read. And here people were just kind of admiring it, looking and, man, look at that. And Jesus told them, the day's going to come when this thing's going to be torn from Not one stone above another. You stop and think about that. That's as flat as you can get. Verse 7. They questioned him, saying, Teacher, when therefore are these things going to happen? And what will be the sign which these things are about to take place? Have you noticed all throughout Scripture people are looking for a sign? Tell me, I want to know when it's going to happen, but what will be the telltale sign of when it's going to take place? They did it back then, or there's still people today looking for a sign. When will Jesus come again? What will be the sign? And he said, see to it that you are not misled. For many will come in my name, saying, I am he. The time is near. Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and disturbances, do not be terrified. For these things must take place first, but the end does not follow immediately. You know, there was people that misrepresented back then, claiming to be the Christ, claiming to be the Messiah. Don't believe them. Is there people today doing the same thing? Are there people today that claim to be the one that's got, I've got it, I've got the word, I've been told by God? And we've heard it throughout time. You know, something, a war breaks out somewhere, or somebody invades something, whatever. Well, I think that could be what it's talking about. That could be one of those signs. The end of time is coming near.
He says he's coming like a thief.
That's the whole thing that people don't realize. When it says he's going to come like a thief in the night, does anyone know when a thief is coming of a night? Or you'd be sitting there waiting on him, wouldn't you? If you knew he was coming. A thief's not going to send you a postcard and say, Phil, I'm going to be there tomorrow between 2 and 4. Has anyone ever got a card like that? No. Jesus, the Lord's not going to do that either. Why do you think throughout Scripture he says, be ready, be on guard, be prepared? Because no one knows the time.
I think the people that are looking for a sign are wanting that sign so that they have the opportunity to get ready.
I think that's a good point.
Instead of having to be ready all the time.
Yeah.
They want to do it at the last minute.
You know, and that may be why people today, you think about that. I like to have a warning. Lord, give me a day's warning. That way I can get right with you before you come.
Just do what they want until then.
You know, you stop and think about that. You think about that. How many today have heard, well, I'm young still. I don't have, I'll take care of that later on.
Yeah, I live my life that way, it seems like.
Yeah.
Knowing I have to do something, I'll wait till the last minute.
Well, we do it all the time. We procrastinate, don't we? We procrastinate. How many of us has got everything done? We're ahead of schedule. How many of us has got in that position? If you are, I want to know your secret. Because I know all of us are usually behind on something.
In work I am, my personal note.
Well, we're all that way, I think. I think we are. Then he continued by saying, well, let me just stop right there. I noticed the time, and we won't have time to go on in to get into this. So we'll stop right there, and we'll take it next time. Thank you for your comments.